Okay, so with Halloween fast approaching, it's time to take a look at our top 10 horror games for the Nintendo Switch. No, Luigi's Mansion didn't make the cut here. This one, it's reserved purely for the creepy and scary. But today we have some great options for you to make your Halloween a true fright fest. Subscribe, hit like, let us know your top horror choices in the comments below, and let's get this started. So Observer, a cyberpunk detective thriller set in 2084 Krakow, Poland. Its influence is clearly Blade Runner, and honestly there's very few influences that could top it. The world is in ruins after the fall of government, and you are out in this dystopian world to figure out the disappearance of your own son. Even starring Rutger Hauer of Blade Runner fame, this one wears its influences on its sleeves, and I absolutely love it. Technically speaking and graphically speaking, it's a fascinating world to embed yourself in, and while it might not quite stand up to the power of other console variations, this is still a great way to play and to get into this world, especially in handheld mode with all those lights off. It's a first-person experience with a combination of investigative detective work layered into horror elements of on-the-edge-of-your-seat gaming, suspense, tension, and just some seriously nerve-wracking moments. So Little Nightmares, this one for me is a true masterpiece, and while the scares are not really jump scares except for maybe a few small moments, the world they've created here is a truly creepy masterpiece of childhood fears. Helping Six and the kid escape, everyone here is essentially out to get you and, well, eat you. Expect puzzle platforming of the highest caliber here, with some of the best world building yet to find its way onto the Switch platform. The Comet Cut, this was actually one of my very first video reviews for the channel nearly 2 years ago, and what an exceptional title it is that it still stands in this top 10 today. Set in Sewa High, you fall asleep during a final exam and wake in a twisted and downright scary version of your school and its hallways. This is a true suspense title where the idea is simple. Avoid a psychotic killer stalking the halls of your school in the form of a teacher while finding a way to escape. Now, the story isn't perfect here, and I would have liked to have seen it develop just slightly more, but overall, this one has some real scares, some real jumps in there, and you're going to find yourself running to find any way of hiding or escaping as the sound design kicks in and that killer theme begins. It's also all set in these beautiful 2D visuals, making it one of the most unique horror experiences out there right now. So Resident Evil, and when it comes to series here, we have a lot of options. I didn't want to repeat myself in a series more than once, so with that, for Resident Evil, my choice is number 4. And while it may not be the scariest of the Resident Evils over the years, it for sure reinvigorated the series. Set in the wake of a biological disaster in Raccoon City, Umbrella's actually now been dissolved, and you take the role of Leon Kennedy on the hunt for the kidnapped president's daughter in a strange little village in Europe, a village no one after you've played this will ever want to visit. Now, while it might sound over the top, and that for sure it definitely is, this is actually nothing in comparison to some of the past and current Resident Evil entries. What you can expect though here is fantastic controls, graphics, music, and a decent story to make this action horror game a defining one now of the genre and an absolute must-own on the Switch. Expect to face waves of enemies, monsters, and chainsaw-wielding maniacs in this masterpiece that you will remember long after you finish the game. So Layers of Fear, and this is a true psychological experience surrounding a painter who you control. Investigating the halls and walkways of your own home, you'll slowly piece together your kind of backstory, all while very quickly falling into hallucinations and just general madness. It is very much a first-person walking simulator, but with a seriously creepy coat of paint. While it's definitely not a perfect experience, it is for sure lacking somewhat when it comes to that gameplay, that limited walk function, some investigative simulations. There's no combat here to speak of, so that's pretty much all you get. But what it does really well, and that's the story, and it's more than enough to be a worthy investment this Halloween. Going into this, I will say expect some huge jump scares. This one had me falling out my seat a few times, and it's for sure going to keep you awake all night. Detention, based in the 1960s with Taiwan under martial law, it's a very unique 2D horror game. You as the player, you control multiple characters, where a school has been invaded by increasingly aggressive supernatural events. Like the Coma and a few of the games on the list here, again you're not going to find any combat here, and for me I feel like that often provides the most scary and nerve-wracking environment, so this one definitely was an appealing one for me. Here, instead, you're going to be investigating locations, running away from unkillable enemies, solving puzzles, and I will say expect quick deaths if you don't move quick enough and make contact with any of these enemies. This is a beautiful game with an incredibly unique look and some seriously scary gameplay that I've not seen anywhere else quite done like this before, and after I played this one, I was absolutely exhausted just from the tension. So Friday the 13th, when it comes to today's list, this I can say is by far the most fun, not particularly scary, but there's definitely more than enough in here for you horror fans. Taking on the characters from the 1980s slasher classic, you're for sure going to have a great time in this online experience. Here it's a simple setup, it's essentially a group of camp counselors versus a single Jason Voorhees. And when it comes to gameplay, you're going to be controlling either. As a group of counselors, you work together to escape where weaknesses and strengths of each character impact your overall ability as you run, hide, and collect items to aid you in getting away. For example, collecting batteries for the car so you can drive out of this camp as quickly as possible. What I'm saying here is working together really is the only option, or at least the only really successful option typically. On top of this though, you do get your crazy out when you get to control Jason and you get here to go on the hunt to kill, maim, and scare in just gloriously over the top moments. You'll be laughing throughout and just mocking your friends. This one is tense but fun, and for a more online experience, this is your choice. Limbo, by far the most artistically creative on today's list, this puzzle platformer is a twisted little treat. Looking for who you believe is your sister, you travel into a disturbing and bleak world. Death here is frequent as you will fail at many of the pitfalls, and while it can get somewhat frustrating times, it's kind of like trial and error where you won't really know what you're supposed to do next. The game just provides enough of a story, enough of a bleak world, and enough of this fantastic puzzle platforming that it's going to keep you coming back for more. It's a unique experience for the platforming genre, which is so frequently, that colourful and friendly place just to be in, to inhabit. Look at Mario, for example. Here, don't expect jump scares, but expect a certain level of creepiness and tension just building almost constantly. The Death Mark, and for those dungeon crawler, adventure game, visual novel fans out there, I'm not usually a fan of that genre honestly too much, but this one got me hooked, and yes, it's definitely a weird combination of genres. Reminiscent of the classic horror movie, to me at least, Seven, this one is particularly brutal in its imagery and storyline. Just think body marks, contortion, torture, and just other levels of horror. That's what you're going to find here in its imagery. While we get no combat again here, conversations actually lead to your death when you answer questions with ghosts. And while that sounds strange, it surprisingly works and surprisingly tense actually. Frequently I wouldn't know what to choose and I'll just be kind of sitting there for 2-3 minutes, not wanting to choose anything. They create these fantastic situations though where you're sweating your way throughout. Expect by far here the most gory artwork of any game on this list today. This one was even censored for its North American Switch release. Tell me that doesn't give you an idea of what level this one goes to. So number one, and this one for me today was an easy one honestly, and I'm looking at you, Outlast. Now choosing just one between the two, for me it's gotta be the original. It's by far the scariest experience available right now on the Switch. The sequel, while enjoyable, missed out because it simply didn't feel as interesting as the first, as unique. And I know corridors might sound a little bit generic, I suppose, compared to the open world we saw in the second one with some creepy ass village. But it was the gameplay there, it was more kind of like see an enemy and run away as quickly as possible. It felt more forgiving than the first, shall we say. In this first game though, you're going to find yourself exploring Mount Massive Asylum and just simply trying to survive. That's pretty much it. These halls are incredibly creepy and the game provides a huge amount of terrifying enemies, a fantastic story. It just must be experienced. It's an absolute technical showcase for the Switch when it comes to ports, tension that constantly builds, and more than enough jump scares throughout, consistently ready to get you. This one, to me, honestly, it's a horror masterpiece and our number one pick for Halloween 2019. So what do you think? Did we miss anything today that deserves a spot on this list? Let us know in the comments below what we should be playing next in the horror genre. Hit subscribe, hit like, and we'll see you all on the next Gaming X.